The patient has no idea what dentistry is. Patient has no idea about all the insurance codes and all the different parts and pieces and materials in dentistry. The patient comes to you because they have a problem and they want you to solve a problem. So solve the problem and talk to them in that manner. So my point is, you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with insurance codes. You're not dealing with dental material and dental parts. And sometimes doctors get really clinical and really want to define how educated they are to the patient that has no clue what they're talking about. So simplify your language.
Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Shahin Safarian, the CEO and founder of Lovebites Dental and a practicing dentist in San Diego for over 23 years. He is currently practicing at Lovebites Dental in San Diego. His national and international lectures have spread the merits of his highly successful dental practice program and contributed significantly to the advancement of professional development within our industry. Welcome to the show, Dr. Safarian. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you joining. I'd be curious. I read through a lot of your LinkedIn profile, and it's a really fascinating story. Can you share a little bit about how you got to where you are today, including that incredible story about how your family came over from Iran in 1978?
Oh boy, you're going way back. I was born in Iran in 78, if you're old enough. I was 10 at that time. There was an uprising and a revolution that occurred, and the Shah was overthrown. And in 1980, there was the Iran-Iraq war that started. And my dad was 46 years old, and when he decided that he wants to stay here in the U.S., we came on a 3-month vacation to visit family and friends, and here we are, 45 plus years later, still on vacation. So, but It teaches you a lot of things. I think this society today is so entitled, and I watch my dad work hundreds of hours a week, month after month, year after year. So this whole 40-hour concept for me is like kind of an interesting concept of, how little you can work and get away with so much, but we can dive into that a little bit. But the point is, watch my dad go through a lot of hardship, immigrating into the country. He's a medical doctor. He's a surgeon. So it took him a few years to become licensed in the U.S. A lot of the dentists right now that are international dentists cannot pass the exams to do dentistry here, cannot pass part 1, part 2 boards. So they're stuck becoming a dental hygienist or an assistant. But my dad persevered and pushed through. I was really proud of him. I mean, when I was that young as a teenager, you don't understand as much as you get older, and you realize, when I took my board exam, I came across doctors that were international doctors, and it really resonated with me as far as what my dad was going through so many years later. So yeah, it was an interesting time, and I was in Utah, and I was there until I was 18, moved to San Diego, and I was a D1 soccer player. I played pro soccer for 3 years in the early 90s, and 97 I started at Tufts Dental and graduated in 2001. I thought I knew everything, and I thought I was the coolest guy in town, and life and the market humbles you. So the past 23 plus years have been a very interesting experience. I have to say, I've had some joyful years, some joyful times and great times, and I've certainly had some pain and hardship as well that I've had to endure. So I come with the concept or the idea of I've always wanted to be a coach. When I was a professional soccer player, I wanted to be a professional coach. I wanted to coach a professional team. And it's interesting that, 20 plus years later, I'm here wanting to coach dentists. And so it's a little different in a sense because, I'm a coach. And so what does a coach do? Coach beats you up sometimes. And coach criticizes you sometimes. And being that we are scholastically advanced and institutionalized to be clinical dentists, it's very difficult. And look, I get it. I mean, I understand the ego. I understand the money component. And, your ego gets bigger when your bank account gets bigger. But, Many times, so does your weight get more and your health deteriorates. So there's a lot in there. Just this morning, I was reading on one of the social channels that a doctor has just had it, 15 years as an endodontist, and she's being sued because a patient is claiming that her needle went into her eye, into her orbital area. And 3 days ago, I read that a dentist committed suicide. So dentistry is hard. It's not an easy profession. It's a very lonely profession. And I think building communities is really important. And so there's just so much to this that is a lot more internally based. And I've kind of met a lot of doctors along the way, and I've met some great doctors, great people. And so, yeah, this gives you a little, maybe an unusual background on how we're here today and why I'm here today in front of you.
You've coached a lot of dentists now, and you talk about, feelings of entitlement and maybe a willingness or lack thereof to do the hard work, and the fact that it's a really hard profession. When you first start coaching somebody, what are some of the attitudes that you frequently see that you try to reframe or that you feel are misguided, where you look to help somebody see things through a different perspective?
We're all so different. We're all just so different. Our value system, our culture, our background, our upbringing. It's a very kind of a customized discussion with the doctor, in a sense, to say, let's just learn about you. So that first hour is just a lot about discovery. Learn about who the doctor is and what their background is and why they are where they are. But the things that I really want, initially, for the doctor to realize that there is an out, wherever they are, they got there because of a series of decisions that they made. So there's got to be radical self-responsibility for the reason why they are where they are. Now, granted, if their husband or wife passed away, there's cancer, there's, some type of a disaster of some type. I understand. Like, I think in Fort Myers a few years ago, the whole town got flooded with a big hurricane and a bunch of dental practices were affected. I understand those things, right? So natural disasters, right? But generally speaking, most of the reason why a doctor is where they are and they're looking for help is because they have to take radical self-responsibility that the decisions that they made, small or large, along the way compounded to putting them in that position. So that's the first thing, is that the finger's got to be pointed at you and not pointed at somebody else. So that's kind of the discussion. And many of the doctors get it. Many of the doctors get it, and they understand. They're like, I don't know how to lead my team. I don't know how to manage my team. I don't know how to understand financials or my metrics. And, I'm just a clinical dentist. And I just realized that I need help in managing the other aspects. And that's okay. So that's initially a discovery call where we just learn a little bit about the doctor. And every doctor is going to be a little different. But the younger doctors have more ego. The doctors that have more money than others have more ego. And they're not always the doctors that are coming to you, right? Because they know it all and they got money. So what do I know, right? But I think the challenge with that is that even within those doctors, there's room for growth and room for improvement and advancement. And some of those doctors get it. So generally speaking, it's a little bit more of a reactive type of a discussion. The doctor comes and says, I'm tired of my hygienist. I'm tired of my office manager. I don't have any money and I'm stuck and, I don't know what to do. It's a reactive reaction to their situation. I need help, help me get new patients, help me get an HR, get my employees in order. So that's usually the initial conversation. And then we just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I love what you said about, taking a look at yourself and understanding, the part that you play in something and taking accountability. It's something that we talk about a lot on my team. I'll have somebody that's frustrated with something. I'll say, hey, hold up a mirror. Like, what part did you play in this? Because this is not all outside of your control. When you're working with dentists, there's typically this concept that, people get into dentistry because they want to do good. There's an altruistic component to it. And then when it comes to where profit meets purpose, that's where there becomes this challenge, and people just really are not prepared to run a business efficiently and effectively. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see? And what are some of the strategies that you really try to help your clients with to help them grow their business?
Yeah, so they need clarity. They need clarity. They can't be a confused leader, right? They can't be a confused leader. They got to have clarity on what they want. And then the other thing that they have to understand is they have to enjoy the process. They can't expect an outcome without enjoying the process. Everybody wants the outcome. I want $1 million practice. I want a $3 million practice. I want a $5 million practice. But they don't want the process. There's a process to get there. You got to enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy the process, the outcome won't matter.
I was just going to say, I'm curious because you're talking about clarity and the outcome. And another, I'm relatively new to dental. So I joined Planet DDS almost 5 years ago, and it's still a learning experience every single day. One of the first things that somebody told me when I kind of entered this industry is that many dentists want to work 4 days a week, hit the golf course, have a lifestyle brand. How does that resonate or connect with these desired outcomes of $1 million practice or otherwise? And do you find a dissonance with the kind of perception of what needs to go into creating that outcome? And is that something where when you talk about clarity, it becomes really important to define?
Let me explain one thing. College and dental school doesn't prepare you for the real world. And the real world is different than the institution of college and dental school. And here's the difference. The difference is you're dealing with people. You're not dealing with typodonts or mannequins or books. And when you deal with people, everything changes. So the number one thing that a doctor needs to understand is they can't say they're an introvert. They can't say that they just want to be a clinical dentist. It just doesn't work that way in the real world. So first thing is the clarity is, listen, man, you got to have communication skills. You got to have listening skills. And you got to be able to have emotional regulation, which means nobody cares when you get angry. Nobody cares when you lose your shit. Nobody cares. That emotional regulation is an important component or an asset for you as a leader. So those are some of the things that doctors don't have at 26 years old because they didn't have to. The book doesn't care that you got personality, but a person giving you $10,000 needs to like you to give you $10,000. So that's really probably one of the first things that we kind of have to understand is that dentistry is about communication. Dentistry is not about dentistry. We were deceived and we were misled into thinking that all I'm going to do is just go work on typodonts and mannequins all my life. No. And so, a lot of the young dentists have problems solving problems that are away from dentistry. In other words, patient comes in, just did a feeling the tooth hurts. They're upset. How do I deal with it? They get their first board complaint. They can't sleep at nights, So the real world is a different game, man. And the real world is a painful world. Customer service is not easy. Your first 10 years in the profession, you have to go through and understand that there's going to be a learning curve and a learning process. I remember my first 10 years, I'd come home, I'd be, gosh, man, I don't know. Did I do my best for that patient? That patient was upset at my work and I would just think about it and lose sleep over it. And I'm just like, it just beat you up. And now it's like patient gets upset and it doesn't happen as much as it used to because I avoid those situations from just everything that I've learned over the years. And one is avoiding the start of treatment. Sometimes those are your best production days. And patient selection is the other. So there's so much in this component, Mike. And so here's the challenge. The challenge is about self-investing. It's about learning who you are, and it's about learning how you can pivot and become dynamic in this real world of dentistry, which is not the world that you signed up for. And so that's the challenge, is that, I thought dentistry is going to be this, and dentistry turned out to be that. And I'm having a hard time because I didn't sign up for that. I wanted this. So it's a school of hard knocks, right? And I went through it. I've gone through it. And so I'm hoping that my coaching and my experience and my downfalls, my shortcomings, my weaknesses that I've had to persevere through and push through can push somebody forward 7 to 10 years. And that's where I come in as a coach to say, listen, you don't need an $800,000 practice as a startup. You don't need to get that big loan to go start your practice. You can have a practice that you can learn and grow with, reinvest back into the practice for growth. Don't get yourself over leveraged. Right now, debt is a big discussion in dentistry. So there's a lot of, how do I maneuver around this world of dentistry? And now, granted, you need to be clinically sound. Dental school doesn't teach you to be clinically sound. And so you spend $500,000 going to dental school, and then now you got to spend more money to learn more, to become the doctor of the oral cavity, because you've just learned to become a tooth mechanic through dental school. So, now tell a doctor that's just put 500 in that you got to put another 300 in, 400 in, and they're already nervous. How am I going to pay the 500? But, dentistry is a beautiful profession. It can give you a great life. And quite frankly, there's a good 3 to 5% of doctors that get it, and they're kicking butt and they're doing great things, and they know what they're doing, and they're doing it very well. So there are those 3%, 5% that get it. And so, more power to them.
You're talking about communication and that it's a skill that a lot of people just don't have naturally. And I agree 100%. And it's one of the hardest things in any business is to communicate well. What are some of the approaches that you take when you're coaching somebody? How do you help them get better at that? Because I do believe it's something you can learn, but it's not easy.
Sometimes you go to these courses and they try to change who you are by speaking a different language. And then when you do that, you're kind of like, this is not really me. It's kind of like when you go on social channels and, press live on a video and you try to be something you're not. The viewers can spot that right away. And that's not very attractive in relationship building in an organic world. It's the same thing when you're chairside with the patient. Just be yourself. But when you are yourself, you have to realize a few things. One, the patient has no idea what dentistry is. Patient has no idea about all the insurance codes and all the different parts and pieces and materials in dentistry. The patient comes to you because they have a problem and they want you to solve a problem. So solve the problem and talk to them in that manner. For example, if you have a broken tooth in the front and the tooth needs to be extracted and grafted and an implant placed, I can show you 8 codes and define what all the codes mean to you and tell you a certain number amount, that let's say it's $5,000 cost, and then show you your insurance covers this, your insurance covers that, your insurance covers this. Or I can come to you and say, I'm great at what I do. I can help you. The cost is $5,000. Your insurance is going to cover $1,000. Your out of pocket is $4,000. Would you like to get started? I can help solve your problem. And so that communication is a lot different than sitting chairside with a full page treatment plan and going line by line and explaining all the codes. So my point is, you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with insurance codes. You're not dealing with dental material and dental parts. And sometimes doctors get really clinical and really want to define how educated they are to the dentist, to the patient that has no clue what they're talking about. So simplify. Simplify your language. Simplify understanding that you're in the service industry and you are a problem solver. And if you understand that and have the ability to just have regular conversations with people, just like they're in your living room, then I think that's a great starting point, or a great way to start the process of having better relationships with with patients, but also realize that today, as you know, a lot of people can do a lot of research. So you got to make sure that there's some content out there about who you are. So the patient walks in saying something like you did. I saw you on LinkedIn. I read your stuff. I followed your website. Hey, I know a little bit about you. Instead of, who are you again? Like, oh, you're the dentist? Oh, okay, great. That's a different conversation. So, you have to kind of position yourself as the authority, and you want them to know a little bit about you as the authority. So at least your face is recognizable when they see you. So, everybody talks about branding today, and branding is your face. If you're a dentist, you don't need a logo. You don't need a great sign in the front. I mean, yeah, if you live in a small town, okay, I get it. But, you're in Phoenix, I'm in San Diego. It's a bigger game. And what matters is your face, your voice. So, and it's a problem in our profession because, dentists are shy and they don't want to get in front of the camera because they're going to get judged. And it's all BS, man. It's all BS. What the patient wants is they want to know that you're knowledgeable, you're smart, you're competent, and they want to like you a little bit before they come and see you. So, yeah, I think organic social has value in case conversion. So communication can be verbal or nonverbal in a sense, right? It could be what they find about you online, and it could be what they find about you when they're chairside. But it can also be that they walk into your place of business and they see everybody gets along, everybody's happy, all the patients love each other. And it's just a high five type of an environment. Like, holy shit, man, why would I not want to be part of this? Versus walking in and going, does anybody in here like each other? Does anybody in here care about the patient that's been waiting for 45 minutes in the next room and nobody's walked in there? So people are very observant, and the business culture is a source of communication too. I mean, look, you judged me as soon as you saw me. You judged me as soon as you heard me, within seconds. And people do the same in your place of business. Why don't you consider that you are the consumer and you walk into your place of business? Would you buy from you? So these are some things. And so communication is not just one-on-one, face-to-face. There's a lot of ways communications matter. We talk about this in sales. Tone is important. Managing objections is important. I was just telling my wife today, I said 80% of the calls that you get at your office is, hey, I need an implant. How much is it? Hey, I need a root canal. How much is it? Well, guess what? That drops your cost per lead on your Google ads. But it doesn't make them a quality lead when they call and you give them a price that they don't like and they don't come to you. So what do you need to do? Just give your price in the landing page. So then when they call you, they know what the price is. That might mean that your marketing firm has to work a little harder because now their cost per lead is going to go up. But there's a greater chance that lead is more quality based because they know the price. Yeah, so just give your price, man. What's the big secret? I mean, there's all this training on, yeah, well, don't give them your price and build the value and, all this stuff. Today, people got 3 seconds to become interested in you. There's too much noise. You got 3 seconds to impress. 5 seconds to impress, or they're going down to the next doctor, the next whatever it is that their ADD is paying attention to. So give them the price right at the front.
Yeah, let me ask you, you talk about establishing yourself as an expert and social media and having a presence and the importance of that. And I know that you're very active on social and you've got a great Instagram following. And recently you had made a post and you talked in the post, you said, stop aiming for $1 million practice, start thinking about that 50% net. Focus on building gradual growth starting from just 1% and watch your success compound over time. Can you go into a little more detail about kind of the thought behind that?
You're playing the net game. There's no value in being an $8 million practice and netting 10% at $800,000, where you could do $3 million and net 800,000 with a better net. From 3 million to 8 million is a big game. So what I'm trying to say is you don't want $1 million practice. You want a $400,000 plus net income. That's the game you want to play. Look, the reality in dentistry is nobody needs teeth. Nobody needs you. People walk around all the time. Look at all the all-on-X doctors. They're 40, 50 pounds overweight. The patient walks in, has no teeth, and they're 50 pounds overweight. You're like, wait a minute. You got no teeth and you're overweight. How does that work? Right? So my point is that you don't need teeth to live. It certainly is going to improve your quality of life. It's going to give you more confidence. You know, there's certain arguments there. But what I'm trying to say is most of dentistry in our world, which is the general dentist, not an oral surgeon, not an endodontist. As a general dentist, most of your work is elective dentistry. What does elective dentistry mean? They don't need the crown. They don't need the filling. They don't need the implant. They don't need the smile makeover. They don't need the clear aligners. They don't need it. So this medical necessity in our profession is overvalued because medically speaking, 98% of what we do is elective dentistry. So what does that mean? You're selling dentistry. That's what you're doing. So when you have this notion that, and look, I've been doing this 23 years. So implant dentistry, smile makeover, TMJ, sleep apnea, clear aligners. There's a lot of dentistry that's elective by nature. So you can be in network. I had this discussion on fee for service, out of network, in network, elective dentistry. Look, here's the difference. Fee for service doesn't really exist. Doctors like to call themselves fee for service. They're actually out of network because if any communication that office has with insurance company makes them out of network. They're still getting their fee for service, but they're out of network by definition. If you're in network and you do these quote unquote specialized care, which is like I said, these 5 things that I mentioned, a lot of insurance companies don't cover that. Elective dentistry means you get your fee for service, but you're in network. I believe your question was, how do you get them to the million? How do you get them to the 3 million? What you need to do is you need to build yourself a robust sales funnel. You can call it, since you're maybe getting all bent out of shape because I said sales and you're a clinical dentist, we can call it a case conversion funnel just so you can be happy. Whatever it is, 2 things are guaranteed. Phone's got to ring and somebody's got to say yes to you. That's what we do. So how do you get to 1 million? Get your phone to ring and get somebody to say yes to you. And that's through the sales funnel. But here's what happens. 100 people call your office. 30 of them you didn't even know that called your office or reached out to you via forms or chat or whatever. It's lost. Now you're down to 70. Your team sucks, so they don't engage with the lead. So now you're down to 45. You lost another 25. So now your 100 leads that you spent money on to get that phone to ring or get some kind of a call to action is down to 45. You lost 55% because your internal team sucks. But here's what happens. The doctor says the marketing team sucks. That's not the reality. The marketing team's job is lead gen. That's it. That's all they do. So now you're down to 45. Now you've engaged with 45 people. You got to get butts in the chair. Out of 45, you get 35% in. I don't know what the math is, but let's say 20 people. So you lost 80% from your lead gen to your new patient butt in the chair. We work on that. And then that 20, doctors don't know how to diagnose comprehensively. You know why? Because they're tooth mechanics. They're not doctors of the oral cavity. So your diagnosis sucks. So we work on that. Your treatment planning and case presentation is just what I said. You problem solve. You're not talking codes. Your patient walks in, you bring in 3 sheets of insurance codes. The patient's like, what's the final number? Like, I don't know what you're talking about here. What do I got to pay? So that's the process there. And then look, here's the thing. I mean, negotiation is part of it, the art of the deal. So you got to have negotiation skills. and you got to have follow-up. And that's all part of the sales funnel. And so how do we go from 0 to 1 million to 3 million? We build a robust sales funnel that out of 100 leads we nurture. We get rid of 10 or 12 because they shouldn't even be in your practice. We engage with the 85 to 90. We have communication skills where we're able to convert a high rate of those 90 people as new patients. Now, instead of 20 new patients, you've tripled or quadrupled that number. And guess what? It's going to grow your business. New patients, butts in the chair, warm butts in the chair. So if I can take that 100 leads from 20 new patients to 60 or 65 or 75 new patients, I'm giving that doctor a much better opportunity to grow their business.
How are these conversations with dentists received? And I ask because, you're speaking my language. I run the revenue team for a software organization. We live, breathe, and die sales pipeline, funnels, conversion rates between each stages, how we can optimize the conversion between each one based off of better discovery, better sales enablement materials, better training, how we have those conversations. But it's not typically something that I hear folks in dental practices talk about in the same terms that you are today.
Do I have the permission to coach you? Can I help teach you something that might be something you haven't heard before? You ask for permission because it's an ego thing, man. If I tell a doctor you suck, hey, thanks, bud. See ya. This doctor telling me I suck. I don't suck. I'm the best thing ever. I'm a doctor. What is this guy talking about? I'm doing $1.5 million at 85% net overhead. So it's ask for permission. I have to work on myself, right? So this concept of knowing everything and being exactly where you need to be and I'm at the top of my game shouldn't exist for anybody. So that's kind of the notion. And that happens in that discovery discussion, right? It's kind of like, listen, I don't get into this discussion on our first call. On the first call is, listen, I'm a coach. So coaches, pat you on the butt when you're doing great things and beat you up when you're not. I'll tell you a story. When I made my first professional team as a soccer player, there were 3 All-Americans that made it, and it was me who made it as a walk-on. And I went through 6 months of training with this team, 4 months, maybe November to March, before the coach even talked to me. And it was one of the senior players on the team that came up to me after 4 months and said, hey, man, this coach likes you. Then what happened is there are 20 players that are selected. So they selected 16 old guys, right, from the old team, 3 All-Americans, and then me as the walk-on, the only walk-on. They took 13 players to travel. I made the 13 to travel on that team that first year as a rookie. So my very first game, I go on the field. Coach still hasn't really talked to me. I come off the bench on my first time, and it's indoor soccer because in the early 90s, MLS didn't exist. So the highest level was indoor soccer. So I go on. I don't even know what I did. I came back out because I was just all energy, came out on the bench, and he starts going, like just going off on me. I didn't even know what I did because it was my first time on the field as a professional kind of thing. I come off and it's the first time he's talking to me. Like the point is a coach is a coach, man. And doctors need to understand who they're hiring. You want to hire a cookie cutter manual? Good luck to you, man. Go for it. Have a marketing guy or a sales guy or somebody else come and teach you how to do this stuff. I'm giving you hard, real life stories of my pain, right? And so, yeah, I feel like I'm in a good place. But I also get it because, again, we're kind of soft. I mean, the reality is most people are soft, but I don't come at them this hard. But listen, if I come to you and I say I can take you from 800 to 1.5 if you improve your sales funnel, you're going to listen to me because at the end, if I get you there, you'll be happy.
Do you think it goes a little beyond just the ego also? It's kind of there's the notion that dentistry is an industry where you're looking to do good for people, right? Like you don't even call it revenue, it's called production. And So the whole kind of sales word is thought of maybe as being almost like a dirty word. It's like you're just supposed to, naturally and organically over time make money because you're doing something in a positive way for folks. Is there a need to kind of overcome that mindset, separate and apart just from the ego of like, I know everything, but to get comfortable with the fact that to run a good business, you have to be good at sales?
Well, the doctor doesn't have to be. I mean, you can be part of an organization that's kicking ass and you do no selling, but you do the granular stuff that makes the organization run. So if the doctor doesn't have the skill to sell, you don't put him in a position to sell. Right. So, I mean, it's going back again to coaching. Part of coaching is putting the players in the right positions to excel, maximize their assets, and hide the liabilities. If a doctor doesn't have the ability to sell or doesn't have much of a personality or can't really even talk properly to somebody, I mean, don't put him in the front lines, man. Bring somebody in that goes in the front lines. But I tell you what, most doctors are very empathetic people. Most do want to do great quality dentistry. So that's a key component as well. So the doctor is an important person, but they don't have to be the person that's selling the dentistry.
You mentioned earlier, always knowing that you're never at the top. Like you've never made it. You're not perfect. There's always room to grow. For yourself as a coach, where do you go to learn more? Like, how do you continue to pursue knowledge in ways that you can become better at what you do so that you can help others become better as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Look, here's the thing. Put yourself in rooms that you're not the best, you're not the greatest, you don't have the most money, and you don't know the most things. Put yourself in those rooms. So I try to put myself in those rooms. I try to put myself in rooms of people that have a lot more money than me, that have a lot more knowledge than me, that have a lot more public presence than me, and I learn from everybody. So yeah, I think I was the guy that 4 a.m. in the morning went for 6-mile runs. I was the guy that was at midnight playing while everybody's out partying. So I was the guy who ran the stadium 6 times, on the stairs. So I'm a little, I just push, man. I'm not, and I push because I love the process, and I failed at the process many times, but what do you do, man? Tim Grover said, when you fail, stay down there for a little bit and then get back up and get going. So stay down there a little bit and feel what you've done to get there. And I've done that a few times in my personal life, in my business life. And look, at 55, if you're 55 or over 50, you've done a few things that you failed in. Face it. It's okay. Look, here's the thing, man. People don't mind failing. They just don't want anybody to find out about it. And that's the challenge and this is why people don't want to go in front of the camera, is because as soon as they go in front of the camera in their community, people are going to go, oh man, that dentist was sued. Oh man, that dentist had to close a practice. Oh man, that dentist has been divorced twice. People don't think like that. And if they do, they probably don't need to be in your practice anyway. So that's part of it. I mean, I think the fear of judgment is what limits so many people in not wanting to go to the next level for themselves.
But it'd take you a while to get to that point. I mean, I think that it is really hard for folks to feel that way.
Yeah, man, I get it. That's why I say when you turn 50, you just don't give a damn anymore. No, it's not easy. Yeah, absolutely. To loosen up, to say, I failed, man, and it's exposed, and that's my story, that's my journey. But, I also truly believe that most, and I'm not saying it's me, but I'm just saying most very highly successful people are comfortable with failure because they learn from it. And I've learned a lot of things. And that's why I stand in front of you or sit in front of you here to say, look, I say these things because I love the profession. I love people. And I would love to help them not go through what I went through. And when I talk about the sales funnel and the lead generation and 20 new patients out of 100, that's hard-earned money that brought those 100 leads in. And you wasted getting down to 20 leads. Let me help you not waste your hard-earned money. That's where it comes from. There's a deep part of me that loves people. And so I went through the pain of getting 20 patients. Let me help you get 65. Yeah.
Dr. Safarian, I really appreciated having you on today, and I thank you very much for the time and being willing to spend this time with us. How do people find you?
Yeah, go on social channels at Dr. Shahin Safarian. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you are interested in having a coach that's real, and it's going to give you the pat on the butt when you're doing great things and criticize you when you need to step your game up, send me a direct message and I'll do my best to try to get you from those 20 patients to 65.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, man.
The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.